Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good. Let's be better.
Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. Today, I am super excited to have my friend Kevin Hallinan, who is a partner at a sales training company called Winning Inc. in Boston. And he is the host of Winning Business Radio Show. So we're going to talk some more about that. Kevin is on the show today because we're going to talk about common pitfalls, common mistakes that salespeople make and what to do about it. So welcome to the show, Kevin. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the asking.
Full disclosure, Kevin and I met almost 18 years ago when he got in the sales training business. We started about the same time, and we were accountability partners. So we have followed each other and helped each other for damn near 18 years and seen each other in the depths of our awfulness as well as now the heights of our awfulness. So we're both pushing and sharpening each other to be better. And he's a great dude, and I can't wait to share. Kevin's tagline, which I love, is we develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. So Kevin, how in the world did you tell these guys tell the No BS sales team how you got in the sales training business? What was the hook for you? Because it's a crazy for you business.
Great. Yeah, it is. It is. Great story. And I'll try to keep it brief. I was a recruiter for many years. And I became really successful. So what do you do when you become really successful? You figure out some way to screw it up. So what I did is I left that company. I left that company to take a director level position. I wanted to be a leader, and my timing was awful though, because I took that job at the end of August, 2001. 10 days later or so, 2 weeks later, 9/11 hits. Right. The bottom absolutely dropped out of the business. And that next year, I was committed to the job, and the owner of that company was committed to me. We said we knew immediately it was going to be a hard year. It turned out to be the worst professional year of my career. And during that year, all of what had worked for me prior to that no longer did. There are current relationships that were saying to me, hey, Kevin, we love you. We can't use you. And so I got to be thinking, I thought I was pretty good in selling. There's got to be a better way to do this. And that's when I started exploring sales training. For me personally, it quickly turned into, once I figured this out, I could be in that business. So I started in the business, learning a ton, but selling sales training.
Right.
And of course, over the years, you learn to get really good at it or you fail. So.
Right. So what was the thing? I remember what it was for me, but what was the thing that you saw in the first bit of sales training that you got that the light bulbs you went off and you said, this is good shit? What was it? What was the thing in the class or the coach that told you, what was it that the light bulb went off?
Yeah, I had been so feature and benefit driven. In other words, and I'm sure a lot of people can say this, right? Is you're passionate about whatever it is you're selling. You believe in it. You know all the ins and outs of it. Unfortunately, we tell everybody that stuff. Some of it resonates. Most of it doesn't. So they don't even know why they should buy from you, even though I think I know why they should buy from me.
Right. And we try and make an intellectual decision because we're so passionate about it. And the funny thing about that, I find, is that if you know that people are buy emotionally, because they buy emotionally. And so you and I both follow a process to keep the salesperson from getting emotional. What I often find is the reverse happens. The salesperson's super emotional because they need the deal and they want the deal, super important to them. And the buyer gets to remain intellectual, and then you get hammered on price.
Right. And then disappointed and frustrated because we know how badly they need us, and we know how well we can help them, but we can't. We end up not. Right.
Yeah. And it's our fault. So
Yeah,
you and I talked a while ago, and we talk about it all the time, about common pitfalls of salespeople. Tell me, what's one of the biggest ones, Kevin?
Well, this is more of a result than a pitfall, but I have some stuff that I wanted to share. But the number one thing I see is people aren't making, whether they're salespeople or business owners, they're not making the money they feel like they deserve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Their income is more determined for them than it is set by them. Right? So let's take a small business owner who is an expert at something, right? He or she has worked hard. They've developed a reputation. They've, whether it's formal education or not, they've learned their business. They know their business really well. So they're an expert in that thing, a CPA, a lawyer, a technician of some kind. I mean, let's say
software
it's a plumber,
guy, whatever the hell it is.
Or a software guy, right? Yeah.
Yep.
But they're not experts at selling. Right? So they recognize certain problems that occur along the way. Like some people will tell me, man, I get upset because I got a ton of prospects. I just can't get them across that goal line.
Right.
Right? Other people will tell me, I don't have many prospects. The ones I have, I get across the goal line, but how do I get more prospects? And then a lot of times with a small business owner, they're not good at hiring salespeople. I mean, let's face it, we are not normal. Are we?
No,
right?
No, hell no.
Right. And we don't behave like everybody else. And we can, if you're decent in sales, you can convince somebody of that prior to being proven. Right.
Well, we also find, right, the backside of that is sometimes the best sale a salesperson ever makes is to get the last job they ever got with a salary.
There you go. There you go. Exactly right. And if you're not trained, or let's at least say fully prepared to hire a salesperson, we miss the nuances, right? So we miss the ability to really objectively evaluate that sales hire. How long is it going to take them to ramp up? How long? I know how long it'll take me to teach them my stuff, but how long is it going to take them to get a meaningful pipeline built, and then to get some of those deals over the finish line to start paying for that salary, right?
Yep. So let me skip for a second, because we were talking about common pitfalls of salespeople, but you just hit on something that I think is pretty interesting to my audience, or would be to the team, is this, what are some clues or some nuances of hiring? You got a little bit you can share there, and some red flags and some things people can do, because we'll get back to the pitfalls. There's plenty of those. Yeah.
So one thing we do, and not everyone's going to do this, but we really believe in some form of objective assessment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So every candidate, not the ones I like, let me talk about that for just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
If I spend time with you, I like you, and then I assess you, one of two things is going to happen. Well, one of three things. It's going to look great. It's going to prove to me what I thought, or it's going to break my heart miserably because I like you, but then I find you don't have the requisite skills, right? Or worse, because I like you, I'm going to say, that assessment didn't get him right. He's much better than what the assessment tells me.
Yep.
So some form of objective assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and we preach this and teach this, and I think you do too, but figure out who, not what, but who you want before you even begin placing an ad. In other words, what attributes, what skills, what experience can they document that experience? So one of the biggest mistakes I see companies make is they go hire someone from their industry, and we hope and pray that they can, quote, bring their book of business to us. And yeah, some of that will happen, but by and large, we're probably hiring someone else's problem.
Yes.
And wouldn't it be more important to hire someone highly skilled who can learn our business versus someone who knows our business that isn't highly skilled?
You have probably experienced this, where I've had clients that let the loser sales guy go, and then we hired someone else from the industry, and basically our loser and their loser high-fived in the parking lot and changed jobs. Yeah, I don't believe in hiring industry experience most of the time. I think it's a false indicator that somebody's gonna be able to do something. And I tell clients, when you're hiring somebody from another place and you're expecting to bring their book, discount the value of the book by 80% of what the salesperson says it's going to be.
Right.
If they promise they're going to bring over $1 million of business, you can count on 200 grand, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So what's another thing for people that are hiring that we need to look out for?
Determine the attributes. So I mentioned, and I'll use a different word, but determine the attributes of that hire before you even place an ad, and then write the ad to reflect those attributes. And then one non-negotiable. In most states, it's really safer in terms of legality anyway, but always have two people involved in a hiring process.
Okay.
So you can compare notes, right? Okay. That other person may see things that I don't, and I may see things that maybe they don't. You know, we all bring biases into the hiring process. Just a particular type of person that I may get along better with, or a particular type of person that I might assume would do better in our business. So two eyes are better than one. And then I recommend always that we prepare our interview questions beforehand. Mm-hmm. The resume, if you think about it, resume is valuable, but it's really a marketing document.
Yes.
Right? And every marketing document has some spin, even good spin. So a resume is not a statement of fact necessarily.
Correct.
So it's a guide, right? It's a place to start. And I've done myself, you know, I can't even count how many interviews I've done where I've just taken the resume and just sat and had a conversation and asked about, you know, so tell me, it says you opened 10 new accounts in the first 6 months. Tell me about that. Mm-hmm. Never documenting it, never finding proof, never necessarily asking how or why that happened. In some cases, people can get lucky. I've been lucky.
Yes.
Right? So know the questions that we're going to ask beforehand. And also, don't try to make a friend, right? Shouldn't it be their job to create relationship with us? Picture that person who you're interviewing in front of your clients. Would you want that? Would you want them in front of your clients? But put them in a position where they can behave the way they should in the field. Mm-hmm. So we don't like to make it easy. We're not mean or anything like that, but we don't like to make it easy. We like to ask predetermined tough questions. Mm-hmm. An example would be, so Bob, I see in your resume that you closed 10 brand new greenfield deals in your first 6 months. How do I know that's true, Bob?
Ooh. I like that.
So yes, it's challenging, but you start to see the real Bob versus the interview Bob.
I find it interesting, and you hit on something here really, really good. My clients often will use me to be the one that does the next to last interview, because I don't have a dog in the fight. If I push back and I'm kind of tough, then they're not mad at the company. They think, who's this asshole consultant that they have, which is fine with me, because they're going to meet the asshole consultant if they get hired anyway. But often I'm not in love with a candidate already, and I can challenge them in a different way and come back with some different feedback. So you
truly are the advocate for your client, not the candidate.
Our job, I hope, is to keep them from making mistakes. So let's go back, if we will, to some more common pitfalls. And you talked about kind of the outcomes, which is that we're not making the money we need to make. We don't have enough prospects. We got a bunch of prospects. We're just not closing them. What are some of the common, let's talk about some of the mistakes.
Yeah. So this is kind of funny, and I think most people will probably laugh when they hear this, but I've never met a salesperson who said, hey, Kevin, my problem, I have too many prospects. I prospect too much. I'm really good at it. I love doing it. So what do we not do more often in our day? The stuff that's either harder or the stuff that we don't like to do. Yes. We all gravitate to the things we like to do.
Yes.
So I've never met a salesperson that prospected, and I'm going to say this, I hope I don't hurt any feelings, enough. Right. And more importantly than that, right? More importantly, most people don't know what enough looks like. So they haven't taken the time, or if they're a new hire, maybe it's not their fault, but it's their manager's fault. But nobody's taken the time to look at key performance indicators and key numbers within that organization. I mean, we've worked with clients that have done this really well, and they'll take a new hire and say, hypothetically, if you're not on the phone, if you don't make 50 dials a day and have 2 hours of talk time, meaningful talk time at the end of the week, you're going to fail. Now, just put those numbers aside, because those numbers vary wildly between company and industry, et cetera. But most salespeople really, truly don't know what enough looks like. So sometimes we take the guilt home with us. Did I make enough? Right? Sometimes we take delusion home with us. I made 10 dials, spoke to 2 people. It was a good day.
Right. Or they just said, I'm busy all day. I'm busy. Yeah. I don't have time. I'm just busy.
We're all busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all busy because we're doing proposals. We're we are doing stuff. We are busy, but we're busy with sometimes the wrong things.
So you said something, and I've seen owners really fall down. And I fault the owner or the sales leader first. When somebody new joins an organization, they need to know the KPIs they have to do. They need to know what is the behavior, because often sales will be brought in and say, all right, we expect you in 3 months to be sold $60,000 worth of stuff. At 9 months, sell this. Go have at it. But they don't tell them how and what that typically takes in the industry. And then you hear that stupid shit like, well, I'm trying to hire people who are self-motivated and know what to do, who don't need to be managed. And as I tell people, there are lots of them out there. They're just your competitors, right? They're already running their own damn business. So everybody else needs to be held accountable. The winners want to be held accountable.
Right.
So if somebody's an owner of a company or a manager, how the hell do they figure out the right KPIs?
Well, everybody's got a calendar, electronic or otherwise. The first time I did this, I had a physical calendar years ago. And I went back into my physical calendar and I figured out, I just came up with a cohort. I figured out how much, let's go back 12 months. How much business did I close in that 12 months? How many closing meetings did it take me? And then I could figure out my average deal size also. And then I could work backwards and figure out how many, first meetings, second meetings, or second meetings, first meetings, if I'm truly working backwards. And then how many conversations does it take? And therefore, how many dials or activities? And the dial is not the only activity, just the easy one we talk about, right?
Yeah.
So I can determine, and listen, everything I know, I've learned from somebody, right? So when I say this, I'm not saying I'm a wise guy and I know everything. I just know a lot. And most of it didn't come from me. But I can determine what exactly my behavior needs to be for a particular day. What activity do I need to do on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday? And by the way, if I happen to take Thursday off for a golf tournament, I should be able to do that guilt-free, because if I know what my minimum activity needs to look like every day, I can do a little more before I leave. I can do a little more after I get back. So before, say, 2 weeks is gone, all that behavior is done, even though it may not have happened on the exact day.
You made it up. Right, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so I 100% agree with you that people are not prospecting enough, and oftentimes it is they don't know how much is enough. They aren't given that information. So if you're a sales leader out there, this is part of your job, is to help your salespeople determine how much prospecting behavior is enough. What are the numbers, the minimum or the required amount of behavior they need to do that is tracked? And by the way, that is not micromanaging. That is just flipping managing.
That's well said. That's well said.
All right.
And
so
by the way, it creates more successful people because they have more confidence in you and in their success if you know enough to tell them. Can I ask a gut check question here, right? The gut check question for owners and managers is, what does your onboarding program look like?
Right.
And notice I didn't ask, do you have one?
Right. What is it? It's the assumptive question.
Right. What does it look like?
Yeah.
And if it's not something that you would get excited about as a new hire, you got to rework it. If it's not something that produces as a system effective salespeople, you got to change it.
Right. Or it's costing you a hell of a lot more money than it would to have one.
Right. So most people do some kind of product training, right?
Yes.
Or offering product service training. But what about the rest of it? I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to you because we're brothers from different mothers, right?
Yeah.
But do we follow a process? What is that process? And then do you teach it to your new hire virtually from the get-go?
How do you teach it to your new hire from the get-go, right? How do you and I always talk about what is the selling system in your company? What is your, when people, they say, this is how we sell here. And I think that's so important because that's part of your culture. It's part of what you're developing, creating there. And if you don't have a system inside of your company for sales, then you're winging it. And I don't know about you, but I've wung it a lot before. It's not worked out so well.
Me too. It's not fun. And here's another pitfall of that is there'll be a bunch of systems. There'll be as many systems as there are salespeople.
Right.
Because everybody does their own thing.
Right. And so then how do you manage that? I ask people, when somebody comes back and says, I got one, what does that mean? Does it mean that somebody answered their phone calls? I mean, they actually got a contract with a check? Does it mean that they got a second meeting? What does I got one mean? You got to know that shit at a basic.
Right. And then how do you get another one? Can you duplicate or replicate that same?
Right. Yeah. Duplicatable. And also, may I share a pitfall that companies have with salespeople? That the new guy comes in, isn't given, His direction he's given from manager, his onboarding program is go talk to old Joe. He's been successful. Do everything he says.
Yeah.
The guy that's been around for 25 years who hadn't started in a long, long time. And he says, well, it's all about relationships. And the guy watches him sell, and all the guy does is, and the new guy watches the old guy sell. It's all about relationships. And he just answers his phone all day. And so the new guy goes, man, I can't wait for my phone to ring. This is great. And he goes out and tries to make friends and ends up starving to death. You can't go to old Joe. You got to start. You got to work with somebody who knows what it's like to start and what are the behaviors they have to do to make that work.
Right.
So what's another one?
Let old Joe, let old Joe keep selling and bringing in that revenue, but don't let him teach the new guy.
Absolutely correct. Good. What else?
Right. Now we're going to get a little deep here because call reluctance is real, right? So if you take some of these outcomes, right, or eventualities of not great training, not great onboarding, I don't know what the roadmap looks like. If I'm not careful as a new hire, I can sit at my phone and just kind of stall because I'm not sure where to start. I know I need to be on the phone, but maybe I'm not sure who I need to call. Maybe I've got a list too, but I'm not sure who I should call first. And then do I have a concise message? If I don't have a concise message, I'm listening to others and I'm hearing, to that point again, right, 3 or 4 or 5 different messages of the people around me. What's going to work for me? And then I don't make enough calls.
Right.
Call reluctance. The phone looks like it weighs 50 pounds instead of the 6 ounces or so, whatever it is that it weighs. Well, a cell phone weighs a little bit more than an old handset, but still, they're not heavy. They just
people use them all. It's not just for texting anymore, right? It can also be used as a phone. And so,
can I touch on that?
Yeah, please.
I got to touch on that because modern selling, we may use some texting, but that's not a primary tool, right? Email, that's the other one, is not a primary tool. It's a tool.
Yes.
But it's not a prospecting tool.
Yes.
It's a tool, but it's not a, and I know people will argue with me on this.
Yep.
Right. But it is not a selling tool. We will use it in selling. A phone call, unless you're in a rare industry, and yes, they're out there, so don't send me an email, but unless you're in a very rare industry, you got to make a phone call. You got to talk to people. Or if you're in an industry where you can do physical door knocks, just get in front of people face to face or ear to mouth.
Yeah, it's the call reluctance thing is real, and I've done this with some clients. It's weird. Some of my clients are opposed to this, but when you have a prospect that you like, put them in a room, give them a list of 20 prospects, and call 10 of them, and set appointments, and then walk out the door, shut it, and leave. And giving people in Arizona or somewhere away, whatever, if you want to, right? Or ones low risk people, and then the funny part is you'll see some people that sit around and they just look at their phone. They can't make a call. They make one call, or they'll storm out angry. And what you realize is, well, God dang, I'm sure glad I learned that now instead after I got them on the payroll. They're not going to pick up the phone and make calls.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
So it's just another, and all we're doing, I mean, it sounds selfish, but we're protecting also that hire, because if they're not going to do the damn work, they're going to be miserable too. So I think that's realistic. So what's another one, Kevin? We talked about call reluctance. We've talked about behavior. We've talked about onboarding. What's another mistake?
Yeah, this one I see so often, and I was guilty of this for a long time, is leaving a conversation without a real next step. And a next step, by the way, I always tell people there are 2, if you look in most salespeople's calendar, there are 2 weeks that have the most scheduled follow-up calls. Labor Day week, because what does everybody tell me? Call me after call me after Labor Day. Call me after the summer, right? And then the next one's coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, January.
Call me after the first of the year, right? So
call me after the
most
holidays.
of that stuff is not real.
Yeah.
Right? It's a can kicked down the road. Mm-hmm. And yes, there'll be some business in those callbacks, but it'll be the exception, not the rule. So here's what I mean by a next step. A next step is not, or I shouldn't accept, and most do, the next step of call me after the holidays.
Yeah, call me after the holidays. Call me a week from tomorrow.
Right? I should figure out what that means. Nicely. Always be nice, but ask the hard question. Hey, love to call you. Happy to call you. In fact, let's get our calendars out. if you don't mind me asking, what will change between now and then? And if they have a legitimate answer, cool.
Yep.
But if they don't have a legitimate answer, I'm asking permission to chase this guy until I quit.
Right. Yeah. Right? And I challenge people too. Don't ask people if you can call. You mind if I call you back in another 6 weeks? Don't freaking ask permission. They got a phone. You got a phone. Pick up the damn phone and call them. The thing I ask people when they say, call me back after the holidays is, look, I'll be happy to do that. Do you want me to? Or are you just being nice?
Excellent.
And maybe not in Boston, but down in the South, people are they are quote nice, which means, oh yeah, call me after the holidays, and then they never take your call. Do you want me to? And then depending upon their answer, then you can say, what the hell would change for you now and then? What is it?
Yeah.
Because I understand we got a lot of things going on, and it's okay to challenge. Right. That's one of the things I think we fail with salespeople is that I fail with, and we fail as salespeople, is that we don't see ourselves with equal business stature. We don't see ourselves the same as our prospects. And one of the things I hammer on, which is it seems just bizarre in the South when I tell people this, in business, don't call people Mr. or Mrs. Down here, everybody's raised to call everybody, Mr. Smith, Mr. whatever. As soon as I'm 54 now, when I get a phone call and somebody says, Mr. McKay, I know it's a chump who's calling me. I know. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Call people. I don't give a shit if you're 22 years old and you're calling on a 65-year-old. It's John or Susan. People say, what about doctors? I'm like, shit, I don't know. But I've found that anybody that corrects me and says, call me Mr. or call me Mrs., they're an asshole. We're not going to do business together anyway.
Probably not.
Kind of my rule.
So I got two more for you.
Yeah.
I got two more. I heard these within the last couple of years. Avoid hate crimes, HAYT.
Okay.
And be unjust.
Okay. Tell me.
So here's what they mean. Avoid hate crimes. How are you today?
Okay, fine.
It's just like the Mr. That's what made me think of it. It's just like the Mr.
Right. It's just a bullshit thing.
Nobody really cares, and it's wasted language, and it doesn't
HAYT. How are you today? Got it. Love that. Okay.
Right. And the follow-on to that is all those. And if you listen to salespeople all the time. If you're a salesperson listening to this, if you're a business owner listening to your salespeople, we say words like super, great, excellent, sweet, right? All those words are just, get rid of them. They're just unprofessional.
Filler. Yeah. I was
doing Be yourself. But I've heard people, while the prospect is talking to them about a problem of their business, they go, great. Because it's an autopilot word.
Yes.
Right?
It's just a bullshit word.
And unjust means we want to be unjust. I just need a minute, Walker.
That was mine. I didn't know it was unjust. I love it. I want people to stop saying, I'm just following up. I'm just calling back. Yeah. Don't say just, and don't freaking tell people you're just following up or you just have a few questions. For God's sake.
I know this is somewhat spin, but I don't believe in follow-up.
No, I'm with you. I agree with you.
Because if I'm following up, though, I didn't set a next step in the last conversation.
Correct. Right on, brother. All right. Well, look, can I share with you a couple things that I've learned today that you reminded me of that are great to know? You don't mind if I share them? Number one, sure. I don't know any salesperson that is or has prospected too much. I mean, you are dead on with that. That is absolutely correct. I also am the way you talked about call reluctance and people's unwillingness to pick up the phone and being afraid of the damn 300-pound phone is absolutely true. And I'm also going to hang on to avoid hate crimes and be unjust. I think those things are awesome. Yeah. Kevin, how would people find you? Do training all around the country with clients big and small. How would somebody find you if they wanted to reach out?
The easiest way is to listen to a couple of my live radio show broadcasts that are turned into podcasts on Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much wherever you can find a podcast, much like this one. And it's called Winning Business Radio. You could either search on my name, Kevin Hallinan, Hallinan, or search on Winning Business Radio, and my mug will show up. You can reach me through there. You can listen. The email address that's easiest to reach me at is kevin@winningbusinessradio.com.
Perfect. Well, that is great. I'm going to listen into the show. I can't wait, and I know that others will too. No BS sales team, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for hosting my buddy Kevin Hallinan on the show today. I hope you learned a bunch of good stuff. I send out a newsletter every Friday that's got a copy of the most recent podcast. It's got one of the videos that I've put out, and it's got several articles that I've been reading that I recommend to you. It's a great newsletter. We're getting great feedback. The list is growing. I encourage you, if you're looking for a little extra thing, if you go, it's a text to number and you can get on my email list. So if you text the letters NOBS, NOBS, it actually stands for no BS, right? But no spaces, NOBS to the number 66866. You'll get on my newsletter list and we'll have some specials and stuff like that for being on the list. But thank you guys very much. Kevin, you're the man. I'm so glad we got to visit and I appreciate you very much.
Me too. And likewise, thank you very much.
Talk soon.